an absurd secret weapon written by Farmwitch 4275. The delegates of the council sat in deafening silence in the Chamber of Covenants, the usual shuffling and sniffles or throat-clearing strangely absent, as all of us considered the issue. Humans, the new species, a race of intelligent mammals that have only recently made it past their homeworld. It was no surprise they were mammals. Most sapient life tends to swing that way, to such an extent that 27 of the 30 council races are mammals. It had only been 2 cycles since first contact was completed, and they had already done so much damage. All in all, we had to bless our holy star that the reptilian Rakandi were the ones to complete first contact. The casualties, if it were any other race, especially the Cenari, gods above, I shudder to consider the massacre. The Rakandi reported strange feelings and incomprehensible dreams after their encounter. They also reported that they were the first and only ones to ever gain the terrifying privilege of talking to them face to face. The council governor started his presentation in silence, doing little more than playing a compilation of security recordings. 80 security recordings that ultimately led to humanity being quarantined in their own star system until the council can understand the reason. We had watched it so many times. It made less and less sense each time we watched it, starting with the awkward first contact with the Rakandi, a normally stoic warrior caste species of territorial reptilians. They looked more out of place than a raw fish in a wine barrel. They started proceedings normally, then became exceedingly nervous. It was as if the Holy Star was whispering into their ears the whole time, carrying an expression of constant befuddled confusion. The Rakandi ambassador sits in shame at his podium at the north side of the chamber as the video replays him nearly passing out upon shaking a human ambassador's hand. The second video is a security recording of a Sarundi ship as it enters human space to establish their own contact protocol and do a little bit of tourist trading. As per procedure, the ship's comms channel and internal messaging was open to the entire crew. The conversation started simply. The ambassador spoke up and started his piece about trade and friendship, then collapsed as he and his entire crew suddenly dropped to the floor. Half the crew was lost due to brain death, while the other half became almost psychotically insane. Those that didn't end up as vegetables became madmen who slammed their own heads against walls. A recording of a group of Taurian pirates looking for an easy score. A loud, shameful groan followed by a collective shudder of disgust erupted from a group as the video recounted the Tabrisky incident. A security recording from a human cargo ship. We all groaned in collective horror and shame as we recalled how profusely we had to apologize and beg as the aftermath hit us. The pirates breached a cargo bay on board the human ship and began to ransack it. 2 males and 1 female. Taurians were not that adept at warfare, being peaceful herbivores normally, and these bumbling idiots were begging for retaliation. It looked more like desperation than greed, but piracy was still piracy. 2 humans, 1 female, 1 male adorned in combat armor entered the cargo bay and began to stand off. The Taurians stopped dead in their tracks and stared blankly at the humans. A scream of desperate rage erupted from all 3 of them, and they charged the humans. The humans, justifiably terrified, opened fire, cutting 1 Taurian down. The other 2 humans weren't so lucky. The 2 humans were grabbed, their armor torn away and weapons bent as the Taurians, suddenly blinded by lust, began to do lustful things to the poor humans. Before it could show anything else, the video cut. The council chambers erupted in a mixture of disgust and anger. This wasn't the first time. Something always drives a Taurian to insane lust-fueled madness when a human is present. To such an extent that Taurian authorities have banned any direct contact with human territories and put in place quarantine-like conditions for trade. The video continued after the council regained their composure. The final straw was the first contact by the Hanari. They were simple pilgrims spreading their faith as they usually do and entered human space shortly before the Tabriska incident. They docked their ship to a human starbase in the system and began to set up for these ceremonies. Unfortunately for them, The first human they encountered was a child, a little girl, around 11 years old. The council audibly cooed at the sight of the adorable creature. We were all in agreement humans were quite nice to look at, and the small ones were just so damn cute. We would have been happier if this incident wasn't so damned bad. The footage carried on. The Hanari delegate looked at the child, let out some kind of strange noise humans described as a squee, and grabbed the tiny creature. The council changed our tone from happy cooing to blistering rage as the Hanari began to attack the local colonists, resulting in a mass kidnapping of every child in the colony. The video resulted in a collective groan of shame as humanity retaliated with merciless force. This was our first demonstration of a new galactic golden rule: don't touch the children. 2 colonies were invaded shortly after by very pissed-off humans, and 2 planets were lost to human soldiers before the council even knew what was going on. The council stepped in just before a human war fleet was about to invade the Hanari homeworld. By this point, the Sakari incident and the Tabriska incident had taken place. Humanity was now exceedingly defensive, having begun to think the galaxy was out to get them. So they went with the do unto others before they do unto you approach. The mass kidnappings of an entire colony's children was essentially the last straw. By some miracle, the kidnappers themselves became our saving grace. We arrested them, only to realize that they had gone literally insane. Showing the human warrior cast, the recordings and photographs of the cultists in question, in padded cells babbling incoherent crap to tiles, made them stop their tracks. We barely escaped a full-scale war. A war that we would have lost. The recording ended earlier than usual, as Chamberlain slammed his head against his podium. "No more! The star's sake, please! No more!" he yelled out in despair. The council agreed and called the viewing to end nearly. "What is this? What has the Holy Star unleashed upon us?" "We all know this recording. We have watched it a dozen times. That was only 17 minutes. We all know it's over 3 hours long. Atrocities committed by, well, us. All against humans. So now we come to why we are here. Why?" I suddenly spoke, my demeanor catching everyone off guard. "Good question. Why is it that when Taurians encounter a human, it suddenly is mating season? Why is it when the Rakundi get close to humans, they become like school children amidst their first love? Why is it that when the Hanari encounters humans, they go from being mildly annoying Zediots to babbling kidnappers?" the Chamberlain said. "Why is it that Sonari go from greedy corporatists to charitable hippies near humans? Why is it that Olivarkas go from vicious predators to entranced artists when encountering humans? So many questions," another councilman spoke. "Gods above, what an embarrassment. Despite their youth, humanity is one of the most formidable military forces in the galaxy. Nearly a full quarter of their species population has combat training or serves in some capacity in armed forces. If we had a war, we would have lost," another councilman said with a groan of despair. "We can thank the light of the Holy Star that we managed to placate them as it is. We narrowly avoided having to face an unconditional surrender," a councilman from the Stuckton Imperium said with a shudder. "Well, that brings us to why we are here," I said blankly. The council stared at me quizzically. "They have a secret weapon," I said. The council erupted in an almighty roar. A mixture of "I knew it," blasphemy, and "so how do we get one?" erupted into the room. It took a solid 10 minutes of the Chamberlain banging his gavel to get us all to shut up. "Council from the Rakundi, you have the floor. Do you have any evidence?" Chamberlain asked. "Well, yes and no. But also yes, but maybe no." I shook my head and groaned, running my hands across my face. "I know exactly what's going on, but it's so, I don't know what, I can barely describe it." I sank into my seat. "Is it some kind of hypersonic super missile that moves so fast we can't see it?" one councillor asked. "I wish it was, but no, it's not a ballistic weapon." "Have they weaponized asteroids or something, like a resonant harmonic frequency of planets?" another asked. "No, even for them that's outlandish. But still, no, I wish it was something like that." "Have they made a pact with the Eldritch God from a black hole?" another asked in turn. "Okay, now you're just throwing crap around." "No, that's not it. It's so much worse, and yet so much stupider, I replied. Enough, the Chamberlain yelled. The room went silent. I just held my hand up to my aching head. Councilman, present your evidence. I grow tired of this meaningless speculation. I stood up and straight, holding my head high as needed by my station. Council, I hereby present to you the evidence of humanity's secret superweapon, a recording of a conversation with a human from the religious group, the Felai Vakal, or Sons of the Void. Little more than a chance encounter at the time, but a fortuitous one. The superweapon was present at that moment. I recorded all of it. But owing to its nature, the recording has been very heavily edited, I said quietly, and approached the main podium. Very well. Protocol must be followed. Council of the Holy Star Alliance, you are hereby called to vote. Councillor Tychon of the Sonari Imperium hereby calls for evidence to be submitted for record. This evidence has been edited, doctored, or modified in some way to adhere to quarantine practices. We shall vote now on the acceptance or dismissal of this documentation. I declare a vote of 60% will allow it to pass. Vote now. The Chamberlain declared and banged his gavel. 60%, unprecedented. No vote has ever been passed before with less than 80%. The vote ended quickly. Again, unprecedented. 30 votes in favor, a unanimous decision. Never been done before. If the circumstances allowed it, I would have received a medal back home for achieving the first unanimous vote in council history. But alas, I definitely wouldn't get any accolades for this. I inserted the memory shard into the podium, and the recording began. It started with the sight of a human in a purple cowl and cloak, with silver trim and accessories. The council chamber gasped in awe at the sight of this exceedingly well-dressed human. So human, tell me, I asked. Marcus, he said. Pardon, my name is Marcus. Your name is Tychon. Please remember this when talking to other humans. We know each other enough now to dispense with formalities, he said coldly. Oh, I'm sorry, Marcus, I was told that you have information about the circumstances currently taking the galaxy by storm. For the sake of legality, I'm recording this, but, can you explain? I asked. What? You mean the random insanity, kidnapping, abuses, and random brain-dead aneurysms? No, I can't explain. I have some, theories, but beyond that, no, I can't explain, he said calmly. There are rumors about some kind of superweapon. Resonant frequencies, missing links, chemical catalysts. Surely there is something. How else can you explain it? I asked, curiously. Like I said, I have no definitive evidence, only a theory. Tell me, how many mammals are there in the galaxy? He asked, leaning over his desk towards me. 27 of the galaxy's species of mammalian. 3 are reptilian, I replied calmly. And the reptilians, I believe, have reported limited to no adverse effects when in the presence of humans, he said with a raised brow. Yes. Okay. What about your species? How do you respond? He asked again. Mild euphoria followed by headaches after the loss of contact, I replied. I can see that, he said as he smirked at me at how much my skin changed from blue to a mild magenta. Right. Let's conduct an experiment then. If my theory is correct, you should be fine. If it is correct, then, we have a serious problem. He smirked at me and connected a strange device to himself. A long, thin tube that split into 2 more tubes. The longest end of the tube had a flat metal head. The other end had 2 small hollow heads. What? What is that? Is it the secret weapon? No, sort of? I don't know. Yes, it's called a stethoscope. Put this in your ears, he said, directing me to put the 2 smaller pointy ends into my listeners. Okay, I gingerly complied with his request and fumbled a bit. These weren't built for me, but I managed to get them in comfortably after a bit. Ready? He asked with a raised brow. I think so, I said gingerly. Okay then, he said. He very slowly lowered the flat end of his chest and held it a bit away from his heart. For a split second, he pressed it to his chest and pulled it away. I squealed in agony as my mind suddenly became overwhelmed. It was as if I had just been bashed across the face with a euphoria stick. My mind went hazy, my breathing hastened, and the world began to spin. Marcus had to hold me up to stop me from collapsing and used some fine-sensed oils to bring me out of it. When I finally regained my senses, I was terrified. What even is that? Your species do not have a heartbeat, he said with mild sarcasm as he placed the cup of tea in front of me. That was not a heartbeat. It was a siren's call from the gods themselves, I exclaimed angrily. There's your answer. He simply smiled at me and let me drink my tea. A silence followed for a minute or two while I regained my composure. What the blazes is going on? Still confused? Well, I have thine answer, Squire. The human heartbeat is OP, he said with a smirk. You what? Okay, here's a little lesson in human biology. Way back in the history of our ancient ancestors, we were growing up in a very, very hostile environment. We needed to have evolutionary adaptations that matched that of normal environment in terms of both our biology and our behavior, he said. Okay then, interesting. I looked at him, expecting the answer to the secrets of the universe. The hostile environment came as a response to both physical and emotional stimuli. Deathworld's gone to Deathworld, after all. It's been so ingrained in us that we've eventually forgotten it even existed. It's the heartbeat. Males and females of the species produce two different heartbeat frequencies. Females' heartbeat is designed to calm and assure. Male's heartbeat is designed to secure and control. Let's say our ancient ancestors had a bit of a problem. Predator nearby, baby scared, needs quiet, or predator gets lunch. Solution is to calm the infant down through kisses, cuddles, and other things. Human evolution responded by using the heartbeat to make specific frequencies to make the process more efficient, he said with a smile. My eyes went wide. Surely it couldn't be that simple. There had to be something else. Go on. Since back in the day, basically every situation was a matter of survival. We adapted easily. Those without the subliminal frequency didn't survive. It was an easy solution to a serious problem, and it helped us in normal situations. It became less pronounced as civilization advanced, of course, but it's still there. The heartbeat of a father has a different effect than that of a mother. A mother's heartbeat is designed to be comforting, calming, sweet, and designed to quiet and calm. A father's heartbeat is designed to calm in the event of fear or danger. It works with adults too. Take an average man who's a bit angry and put his head against a woman's chest. Watch him go from a raging lion to a purring kitten in a matter of minutes. Get a woman who's scared out of her mind and get a man to give her a cuddle. Watch her go from terrified to calm in short order. Of course, that's how society works these days. It is a secondary response, but it is still there for when we need it. We've almost forgotten it existed. Until you lot showed up, he said. I scratched my chin and thought. I took the stethoscope and held it to my own chest, listening to the rhythmic pinging of my two hearts beating in tandem. That's it, really. Not much else to it. Well, that's the theory, anyway. Probably going to need more tests, but it works for now, I guess. He simply smiled at me and resumed his desk job. Okay, then. So why is it that it's so severe when we are around you? I asked, purely out of curiosity. No idea. Perhaps that's something you need to figure out yourself. In the meantime, we have decided to quarantine ourselves in our own systems and communicate through video call and whatnot instead of from now on. We don't want any further incidents. I'm sure you understand. He smiled at me and resumed his work. I stopped the recording and looked at the council expectantly. Then, in a final provocation, I started a new recording, 4 seconds long. I braced myself and made absolutely sure that it was not on loop, then played it. Thump-thump, thump-thump. The council exploded into a collective groan. In 4 seconds, all species present went through 1,000 different emotions as their brains scrambled to make sense of the stimuli. A human female heartbeat, followed by a male heartbeat. It was an incredible thing to see, both amazing and terrifying all in the same breath. Members of warrior cultures and military men were hiding in their seats, calm and quiet, while others were hurriedly hiding in their podiums to hide their arousal. Some were giggling uncontrollably, while others were starting to sob and cry. Some of the newer members of the council were enraged and calm all in the same few seconds, going from screaming in hatred to crying in fear all at once. The rest of the council were laughing uncontrollably and squealing in delight, as if they'd just heard the cutest or funniest thing in the universe. I held up a strange cylindrical item given to me by the humans, a thing called an air horn, and put my head protector on my head. I pressed the button, and a massive blast of irritating loud noise shattered the room. Everyone snapped out of it, their minds returning to normal within a reasonable amount of time. I waited for the council to calm down and wipe the slobber off their faces. So humanity has voluntarily decided to quarantine themselves within their own core systems. The Rakandi have offered to be the go-between since they seem to be the least affected by this thing. At least until we can figure out a way to filter it out, or figure out how it works. I call the council meeting to dismiss. I need to change my pants, the council chamberlain said, slamming his gavel and hobbling away, trying to hide his embarrassment. Well, that's nice, I shuddered in disgust. I guess we'll take this up another day. I shrugged my best shrug and walked back to my office, trying to make sense of this evolutionary quirk. I went back into my office and sat down at a shrine we all have, a small tribute to our gods back home, and tried to pray for answers. I sat there for a few minutes and prayed. I tried to catalog things in my head and make sense of anything about this ridiculous situation. The Rakandi would behave like a hippie at an open-air festival, the frequency from a human heartbeat similar to a mild narcotic. The Taurians had their minds rewired to the point that the brains immediately went into a breeding frenzy. The Hanari became almost unresponsive drug addicts that became obsessed with cute things, treating humans like collectible teddy bears. I shuddered to consider the response of the Morondine and had to stop myself from thinking about it as I almost vomited. What the hell did nature create? I could only thank the universe itself that we were separated from them by a void of space itself. Otherwise, we would be in deep, deep shit. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.